Hello there and welcome. I want to share a bit about my journey with English. A journey that began with a lot of struggles but eventually led to success. When I first started learning English, I felt completely lost. I remember looking at books full of words I couldn't understand, hearing people speak too quickly, and feeling overwhelmed. It was like I was standing at the bottom of a tall mountain, unsure of how to climb it. At first, I would try to listen to English conversations, hoping to pick up a few words here and there, but everything sounded so foreign. I didn't understand much, and I felt nervous whenever I tried to speak even a single sentence. The hardest part was building up the confidence to keep going, especially when it felt like I was making so many mistakes. But I knew I wanted to learn English for a reason. You see, I had big dreams. I wanted to travel the world, meet new people, and open up new career opportunities. English was my gateway to all of these things. I thought about how amazing it would be to connect with people from different countries, to share stories and ideas without feeling like there was a wall between us. I wanted to watch my favorite movies in English, read articles, and even understand English songs without needing subtitles or translations. So despite my struggles, I knew I had to keep going. Little by little, I began finding simple methods that made learning English easier and more enjoyable. Over time, I discovered that English didn't have to be scary or difficult. By following easy steps, I started to see real progress, and that made me even more determined. Now, I'm here to share that journey with you and show you how you too can take simple steps toward understanding and speaking English. If you've ever felt unsure about learning English or worried about making mistakes, you're not alone. I've been there too, and I want to tell you that every step forward, no matter how small, brings you closer to reaching your goals. Whether you want to travel, make new friends, or build your career, English can be a key to unlocking so many amazing opportunities. So, let's take this journey together, step by step, and before long, you'll see that learning English can be both achievable and enjoyable. When I first started learning English, I felt like I needed a clear goal to keep me motivated. I wanted to know exactly why I was putting in the time and effort to learn this language. I spent some time thinking about it, and I realized that having a strong reason would give me something to hold on to whenever I faced challenges along the way. So, I asked myself, what do I really want to achieve by learning English? For me, the answer came pretty quickly. One of my dreams was to be able to watch English movies without needing subtitles. I love movies, and I wanted to experience them fully, understanding every word and every joke, not just through translations. I wanted to enjoy the dialogues, feel the emotions, and laugh at the jokes just like native speakers do. I pictured myself sitting back, watching a movie, and understanding every single scene. That thought made me feel excited about learning English. It became one of my first big goals. But it wasn't just movies. I also wanted to be able to travel and talk to people from different parts of the world. I imagined myself in a foreign country, speaking with people in English, asking for directions, ordering food, or just making new friends. Being able to communicate freely, without having to worry about language barriers, felt like it would open up a whole new world for me. I wanted to be able to go anywhere and feel confident that I could connect with others, understand them, and share my own thoughts too. The idea of having conversations with people who didn't speak my native language felt exciting and a bit scary at the same time. But it was a goal that really inspired me. I thought about all the new friendships I could make, all the interesting people I could meet, and the stories we could share. English, I realized, wasn't just a language. It was a bridge to new cultures, new perspectives, and new experiences. Then another thought came to my mind. English was also becoming more and more important in the workplace. Many job opportunities required English skills, and I didn't want to miss out on them. Whether it was reading important documents, writing professional emails, or just being able to speak confidently in meetings, I knew that English could help me grow in my career. I thought about the doors it could open for me, and how being fluent in English could be a valuable skill that would make me stand out. So, I set my goals. Understand English movies, talk to people from around the world, and build my career. These goals weren't just big dreams, they were also practical. They gave me something to work toward every day. Whenever I felt tired or discouraged, I reminded myself of these goals, and they gave me a fresh burst of motivation. I realized that learning English wasn't just about memorizing words or grammar rules. It was about moving closer to the life I wanted to live. If you're beginning to learn English, I encourage you to set your own goals. Think about what excites you and motivates you. Maybe you want to understand English songs, write to friends from other countries, or feel more confident at work. Whatever your goal is, keep it in your mind, because it will help you push through any challenges. With a clear goal, learning English becomes not just a task, but a path to the future you dream of. When I first began learning English, I faced so many challenges that I sometimes wondered if I would ever really understand or speak the language. Every beginner faces struggles, but they often feel bigger and scarier when you're right in the middle of them. At times, I felt nervous and even embarrassed, as if everyone could see how much I was struggling. One of my biggest struggles was pronunciation. English words sounded different than they looked, and it seemed like every letter had its own rules. When I tried to pronounce certain words, it was like my tongue wouldn't cooperate. I remember looking at words like thought or enough and feeling completely lost. The letters didn't sound the way I expected, and I kept making mistakes. I practiced in front of the mirror, repeating words again and again, but I still felt unsure. Sometimes I would say a word out loud, and it would sound right to me, until I heard a native speaker say it, and then I'd realize how different it sounded. This made me feel self-conscious, and I worried that I'd embarrass myself if I tried speaking to someone in English. Another challenge I faced was understanding native speakers. I thought I could handle listening, but when I tried to follow conversations or watch English videos, everything moved so quickly. Words blended together, and I couldn't catch what was being said. Even simple conversations sounded fast, and it seemed like native speakers used so many expressions that I didn't know. I tried watching English videos with subtitles, but I still found it hard to keep up. I'd read one line, and by the time I'd processed it, they were already on the next sentence. I felt frustrated, as if I was always one step behind. It felt like I had to work twice as hard just to understand what native speakers said so easily. On top of that, I faced a huge lack of confidence. Every time I tried to speak, I worried about making mistakes. What if I used the wrong word or said something that didn't make sense? I thought everyone would notice and maybe even laugh at me. So I often stayed quiet, even when I wanted to practice. I wanted to join in conversations, but my fear held me back. I didn't want people to see that I was struggling or that I couldn't speak fluently yet. The fear of being judged made it even harder for me to speak up, and this slowed down my progress. But these challenges weren't just about pronunciation, listening, or confidence. They affected how I felt about myself as a learner. I began to question if I was even capable of learning English. I felt discouraged and wondered if I was wasting my time. Each mistake felt like a setback, and each misunderstanding made me feel like I'd never truly be able to communicate in English. I worried that I would always feel like an outsider when speaking English, and that made me doubt my abilities. Despite all these struggles, though, something kept me going. I reminded myself why I wanted to learn English. I reminded myself of the goals I had set: to watch movies, to travel, to make new friends, to grow in my career. Each time I felt like giving up, I thought of those goals, and they gave me the strength to try again. I learned that challenges are a part of the journey, and every mistake I made was a step toward improvement. Slowly, I began to see that I could overcome these challenges. With each little success, my confidence grew, and I realized that even though the journey was hard, it was also worth every effort. After facing so many challenges, I realized that I needed to simplify my approach. Instead of trying to tackle everything at once, I focused on small, manageable steps. I knew that if I could find a method that was easy to follow and repeat each day, I'd start to see progress over time. So I decided to break down my learning into 3 basic, beginner-friendly steps: listening and repeating, building daily vocabulary, and practicing speaking. The first step was listening and repeating. I discovered that listening to English regularly could help me get used to the sounds and rhythm of the language. I started with short, simple videos on YouTube, things like beginner English lessons, short dialogues, and even children's songs. These videos weren't too fast, and the language was easy to understand. I would listen to each line carefully, then pause the video and repeat it out loud. Sometimes, I'd repeat the same phrase multiple times until I felt comfortable saying it. This helped me learn the pronunciation and flow of each phrase. I wasn't just learning words, I was training my ears to recognize familiar sounds, which made speaking easier. In the beginning, I would choose phrases that I thought would be useful in daily life, such as, "How are you?" or "Can you help me?" These were simple phrases, but practicing them over and over helped me gain confidence. I remember the first time I said a sentence in English without hesitation. It felt like a huge victory. Listening and repeating gave me a foundation to build on, and it was easy enough to fit into my daily routine. Even if I only had 10 minutes, I could watch a quick video, listen carefully, and practice saying a few lines. Each time I did this, I felt a little closer to understanding and speaking English naturally. The next step I added was daily vocabulary. I realized that if I could learn even a few new words each day, I'd be building up my language skills little by little. I started with just 5 words a day, choosing words that were relevant to my life and interests. For example, If I learned the word apple, I would try to create a sentence with it, like I eat an apple every morning. This way, I wasn't just memorizing words, I was using them, which helped me remember them better. Learning a few new words each day didn't feel overwhelming, and it quickly became a habit. I kept a small notebook with me where I wrote down each new word along with its meaning. Sometimes, I'd even add a sentence to remind myself of how to use it. Throughout the day, I'd look at my notebook whenever I had a free moment, reviewing the words and repeating them to myself. By using the new words and sentences, I found that they started to stick in my mind. Little by little, my vocabulary grew. I went from understanding just a few basic words to recognizing and using words in real conversations. Knowing that I was adding new words to my vocabulary each day kept me motivated. It felt like I was making real progress, even if it was just 5 words at a time. Finally, I focused on practice speaking. I knew that to truly improve my English, I had to start using it in conversation. But since I didn't always have someone to practice with, I got creative. I began practicing in front of a mirror. I would look at myself and say simple sentences out loud, pretending I was having a conversation. It might sound silly, but it helped me get used to forming sentences and speaking them with confidence. I would start with basic sentences like, "My name is James," or "Today is a sunny day." Practicing in front of the mirror allowed me to see my facial expressions, focus on pronunciation, and even work on my confidence. Sometimes I would set aside a few minutes each evening to have a mini conversation with myself in English. I'd talk about my day, what I ate for lunch, or what I planned to do the next day. This helped me get comfortable speaking English without feeling pressure or fear of judgment. As I grew more confident, I started looking for other ways to practice speaking. I tried recording myself, listening back, and correcting my mistakes. I even found a friend who was also learning English, and we practiced speaking together over the phone. We would start with simple conversations, asking each other basic questions like, "What did you do today?" or "What's your favorite food?" Practicing with a friend made learning more fun, and it gave me the courage to speak without worrying too much about making mistakes. Following these 3 simple steps, listening and repeating, learning new words daily, and practicing speaking, made a big difference in my learning journey. By breaking down my studies into manageable parts, I didn't feel as overwhelmed, and I could see my progress each day. Listening helped me get used to the sounds of English. Building vocabulary gave me the words to express myself, and practicing speaking gave me the confidence to use what I had learned. If you're just starting to learn English, I recommend giving these methods a try. You don't have to spend hours each day. Even a few minutes can make a difference. The key is to stay consistent. Just like planting a small seed and watering it every day, your English skills will grow bit by bit. Over time, these small efforts will add up, and you'll find yourself understanding, speaking, and even thinking in English. Remember, every small step you take brings you closer to fluency, and with the right methods, learning English can be both simple and rewarding. Creating a daily routine was one of the best decisions I made in my English learning journey. I discovered that if I could dedicate a little time each day to practice, I would make steady progress without feeling overwhelmed. Instead of trying to do everything at once, I broke my routine into small, focused tasks throughout the day: a morning vocabulary review, an afternoon listening session, and an evening writing practice. This daily structure helped me stay consistent, and over time, it became second nature. Each morning, I began with my vocabulary review. I found it helpful to start my day by learning just 5 new words. 5 words might not seem like a lot, but it's manageable and allows you to really focus on understanding each one. I would start by writing down the words in my notebook, along with their definitions and an example sentence. I'd repeat each word out loud, paying attention to how it sounded. Then, I'd try to use each word in a sentence related to my life, so it felt more personal and memorable. For example, if one of my words was breakfast, I might say, I eat breakfast every morning. This way, the words became connected to my daily life, which made them easier to remember. I also found that reviewing my new vocabulary in the morning had a special advantage. It gave me the chance to think about these words throughout the day. As I went about my day, I'd find moments to mentally repeat my words or see if I could use them in my thoughts. Sometimes, I'd even try to picture the words in my head or imagine myself using them in a conversation. Little by little, these words became part of my mental vocabulary, ready to be used whenever I needed them. Starting my day with new words was like setting a positive tone for my English practice. It reminded me that learning English was something I could do a little at a time, and it made me excited to learn even more. In the afternoon, I set aside time for listening practice. This was when I would watch a short English video, like a beginner's lesson, a short clip from a movie, or even a children's show. I'd look for videos that were easy to understand, with clear pronunciation and simple language. Listening to native speakers helped me get used to the rhythm and sounds of English. I would play the video, pause after each sentence, and repeat what I heard. This listen and repeat exercise was one of my favorite parts of the routine because it felt like I was practicing real English as it's spoken. At first, I'd focus on repeating just one phrase at a time, making sure I was pronouncing each word correctly. I'd try to copy the speaker's tone, rhythm, and pronunciation as closely as possible. Some days, I'd practice the same video multiple times, repeating certain phrases until they felt natural. Other days, I'd watch a new video to introduce myself to different words and expressions. This daily listening practice also helped improve my confidence with pronunciation. I could hear myself saying each phrase, and it allowed me to correct mistakes before they became habits. Plus, I was picking up on common expressions and phrases used in everyday English. Then, in the evening, I would end my day with a short writing exercise. This was my time to use everything I had learned that day. I'd sit down with my notebook and write a short paragraph using my new vocabulary words. Sometimes I'd write about my day. Today, I had breakfast with my family, watched an English video, and practiced speaking. Other times I'd write a little story using the words I learned, or describe something I wanted to do the next day. This writing exercise was like putting the day's lessons into action. It helped me understand the new words and allowed me to see how they fit into sentences. If I was stuck on a particular word, I'd go back to my notes and look it up again. The act of writing each word reinforced its meaning, and I found that I was remembering words better the more I used them. The writing exercise also helped me with grammar and sentence structure, 2 areas I often struggled with. By writing each evening, I was practicing how to organize my thoughts in English, which made speaking and understanding English feel a little easier every day. Eventually, this daily routine became a natural part of my day. I no longer had to remind myself to study English. It was just something I did, like brushing my teeth or having breakfast. By setting aside time in the morning, afternoon, and evening, I felt like I was constantly in touch with the language. It didn't feel like a burden or a big task. Instead, it became a simple, daily habit that fit into my life. Some days, if I was busy, I'd shorten my practice a bit, maybe reviewing just a few words or watching a shorter video. But I made sure to practice every day, even if it was just for a few minutes. If you're starting your own English learning journey, I recommend trying a similar routine. You don't need hours of study, just a few minutes each morning, afternoon, and evening. By reviewing vocabulary, listening to real English, and practicing writing, you're covering all the basics: words, sounds, and sentences. This routine will help you stay consistent and make learning English feel less like a chore and more like a natural part of your day. And remember, it's okay to start small. Every new word you learn, every phrase you repeat, and every sentence you write brings you closer to fluency. With a simple daily routine, you'll be amazed at how much progress you can make over time. After weeks of following my daily routine, I began to notice something incredible. I was making real progress. It wasn't always dramatic or obvious, but little by little, I could feel my English skills growing stronger. There were small moments in my day that showed me how far I'd come, moments I like to call small wins. These wins were tiny signs that my hard work was paying off, and each one made me feel even more motivated to keep going. One of my first small wins happened one morning at breakfast. I was sitting with a friend who spoke a bit of English, and we were chatting in our native language. Suddenly, I decided to try using a few of the English words I had learned that week. My friend was surprised but encouraged me, and together we practiced some simple phrases. I remember using the word delicious to describe my breakfast and seeing a smile on my friend's face as they understood exactly what I meant. It was such a simple word, but it felt powerful to use it correctly in a real conversation. I realized that for the first time, I was communicating in English, even if it was just a word here and there. That small win felt like a big achievement and made me excited to keep learning. A few days later, I had another small victory. As part of my daily routine, I watched a lot of English videos, and I always repeated the phrases I heard to improve my pronunciation. At first, I could only understand very basic words, and I often had to pause the video and listen carefully. But after some practice, I noticed that I didn't need to pause as much. One day, I watched a short video without pausing at all, and to my surprise, I understood nearly the entire clip. It was a simple video about everyday activities, but being able to follow along without stopping felt like a major breakthrough. It was the first time I felt comfortable listening to English at a normal speed, and it gave me a boost of confidence. I realized that my ears were starting to get used to the sounds of English, and I was developing a feel for the language. This small win showed me that I was on the right path and that my daily listening practice was working. Another memorable win came when I was out shopping. I overheard two people speaking in English nearby, and without meaning to, I started listening. At first, I was nervous that I wouldn't understand anything, but to my surprise, I picked up on a few words and even understood some of their conversation. They were talking about their plans for the weekend, and I caught words like movie, friends, and restaurant. These were words I had practiced in my daily vocabulary sessions, and hearing them in a real conversation made me feel like I was starting to understand English in the real world. I didn't understand everything they said, but catching just a few words made me feel like I was part of their conversation, even if only in my mind. This win was so unexpected that it filled me with excitement and reminded me of why I wanted to learn English in the first place, to connect with others and understand the world around me. One of my favorite small wins happened during my evening writing practice. I had been writing a few sentences each night, and over time I noticed that I was making fewer mistakes. One evening, I decided to challenge myself and write a full paragraph in English without using a dictionary. I wanted to see if I could rely only on the words I knew. To my surprise, I managed to write a short paragraph about my day, describing what I did and how I felt. It wasn't perfect, but it felt natural, and I didn't have to stop to look up words as often as I used to. This was a huge step for me because it showed that I was building a mental dictionary of English words that I could use whenever I needed them. I felt proud that I could express my thoughts in English, and it motivated me to keep practicing. Over time, these small wins began to add up. Each win, whether it was understanding a conversation, using a new word in context, or writing a paragraph, felt like a building block on my journey to fluency. These moments weren't about being perfect. They were about recognizing and celebrating progress, no matter how small. I realized that learning a language isn't just about reaching a final goal. It's about enjoying the journey and finding joy in every step forward. Each win, no matter how tiny, reminded me that I was improving and that I had the ability to keep going. If you're learning English, I encourage you to celebrate your own small wins. Every time you understand a new word, have a simple conversation, or write a sentence in English, you're making progress. These moments may seem small, but they're powerful reminders of how far you've come. Remember, every step forward, no matter how small, is a victory worth celebrating. With each win, you're building confidence and creating a foundation for even more success. Keep going, enjoy the journey, and know that every small win is proof that you're getting closer to your goal. As I look back on my journey, I'm amazed by the progress I've made with just a few daily practices. I remember how, in the beginning, even the simplest phrases felt intimidating, and I worried I would never be able to speak English confidently. But over time, with each word I learned, each phrase I repeated, and each small win I achieved, I started to feel stronger. The journey wasn't always easy, and there were days when I felt stuck, unsure, or even frustrated. But those were the moments that taught me the most. Moments that reminded me learning English is not a race, but a journey. If there's one thing I've learned along the way, it's this: consistency is the key. Learning English isn't something that happens overnight. It's something that grows day by day, like a seed planted in the soil. At first, you may only see small signs of growth, like remembering a new word or understanding a simple sentence. But as you keep practicing, those small signs turn into bigger breakthroughs. With each word you add to your vocabulary, with each video you watch and repeat, with each sentence you write in your notebook, you're adding to a solid foundation of English skills. Remember that every time you practice, no matter how small the step may seem, you're moving forward. You're building confidence, strengthening your memory, and making English a natural part of your life. There's no need to rush or to worry about being perfect. Language learning is about progress, not perfection. Each mistake you make is simply a stepping stone, showing you the way forward. In fact, mistakes are one of the best teachers. They show us where we can improve and help us grow stronger. To anyone who's starting this journey or may be feeling stuck, I want you to know that your efforts matter. Every little practice session, every time you listen to an English phrase, every sentence you write, it all counts. You might not see the results right away, but over time, you'll look back and realize how far you've come. You'll remember those first awkward attempts at pronunciation, the first time you understood a word without translating it, and the first moment you held a simple conversation. These are the wins that will keep you going and remind you why you started. Don't be discouraged by days when it feels difficult. Learning English is like climbing a mountain. You may not reach the top right away, but each step brings you closer to the view. Some days you might feel like you're barely making progress, but remember that each small effort is adding up. Consistency is like a hidden power. It may seem invisible at first, but over time it becomes unstoppable. I want to leave you with this thought. Every word you learn, every sentence you speak, brings you one step closer to fluency. Learning English is a journey that requires patience and dedication, but it's a journey worth taking. Imagine the possibilities that open up with each new word you master, the conversations you'll have, the books you'll read, the people you'll connect with from around the world. English is not just a language, it's a bridge to new experiences, new friendships, and new opportunities. So, keep practicing each day, even if it's just a few minutes. Keep adding those words to your vocabulary. Keep watching and repeating those videos, and keep writing those sentences. Each of these small steps is like a brick in the foundation of your fluency. The journey may be long, but it's also rewarding, and every day you are closer than you were before. Take pride in every step forward, and remember, you're not alone on this journey. Many others have walked this path before you, and many more are walking it with you now. Together, you're part of a community of learners, each of you striving to reach your goals. Celebrate each success, no matter how small, and be kind to yourself on the challenging days. Learning a new language is a brave and ambitious goal, and every effort you make is worth celebrating. So, keep going and believe in yourself. Every word you learn brings you closer to fluency. Each phrase you master becomes part of your language skills. And with every practice session, you're building a brighter, more confident future for yourself. Stay committed, stay positive, and enjoy the journey, because you're on the path to success.